and welcome to this morning's CMIR exam prep. Um, we plan to answer any questions that you might have regarding the test itself. Of course, we won't go into individual questions, but we hope that you will find this helpful. The first thing I want to talk about is that the Certified Manager of Investment Recovery requires quite a bit of education and years of industry experience. Recognize that how you do things in your company may be a little bit different than what the best practices are for investment recovery, and keep that in mind when you're taking the test, because the test is based on what those items might be that would have practical value to all companies across the board and using best practices. Um, Passing the test, of course, is important to getting your Certified Manager of Investment Recovery certificate and getting your award. And I welcome all of you. I hope everybody is going into this with a spirit of positivity, and you've put in the work, and it's time to reap the benefit for that. I've already done the introduction. We're looking at what the expectations for this particular session are that you can ask questions related to the exam. As I said, we won't be giving test questions or anything like that because that wouldn't be appropriate. And the exam design and how we came up with the test questions, as well as the criteria for passing the test. There will be time for questions at the end, and also talking about what the next steps are. And some of the next steps, and I'll just put it out there right now, is there is a process, and each of you who intend to take the test will be required to fill out the CMIR data form and pay the fees associated with that. But the data form really helps us because it helps us to determine whether or not a person has the right amount of time in the job and is qualified to take the test. The CMIR was created in 1994, and it was developed, this particular test was developed by a group of subject matter experts. These are people who had already passed the CMIR exam and were willing to put their time in to develop questions and come up with a test that was that measured what we should know as a minimally competent investment recovery person or representative. Now, that's kind of a challenge because what is minimal competence? But what we decided was to take a person who had been in their role for 3 years, because that's what you need in order to fill out your CMIR data form and to qualify to take the test. What level of knowledge should that person have in each area of the test? It is scored using the Angoff system, and that system provides a very systematic and documented approach to scoring for these kinds of standardized tests. It is a pass-fail. You won't get to know what you missed or what you got right, but it will be a pass-fail. And again, that minimal competence is what we're judging against. This will be the first year, thank you, Jane, for elevating this program and producing the first electronic exam. If anybody, having said that, if anybody has considerations that need to be met in order to allow you to take an electronic exam, please let Jane know as soon as possible. If you have a hearing or a vision deficiency that requires a certain type of equipment, please let us know. Testing candidates have 3 years experience, as I said, and that's doing IR for at least 50% of the time. We know in many of our member companies that the IR role is actually a shared role, in that the person who is responsible for doing IR is also responsible for other duties, typically in the purchasing field. Each candidate should have also completed the CMIR form, as I said, and we do need time to review those. So get those in just as soon as possible if you do intend to take the test. You will receive a confirmation that you can sit for the exam, and that's once Jane has done all of the necessary back work on those. So please give her plenty of time to do that by getting those forms in as soon as possible. The tests are 120 questions. They're all multiple choice. There are no essay questions, and they don't require a calculator. So don't worry that there's going to be, some heavy duty math questions or anything. The question itself is designed to be very simple. The setup is simple, so that you're not focused on, did I get the math right? You're focused on, did I get the concept right? The various subject areas that we'll be testing on are business considerations, negotiation and contract development, project management and scrap recycling, surplus asset ID, valuation and dispositioning, and warehousing and logistics. Now, each of those seems like a heavy-duty course or a subject area. What we've done is determined how much of the knowledge that an investment recovery professional has should be associated with negotiation and contract development, or project management and scrap recycling. And we've assigned some weight to each of those. So going back to the Angoff scoring system, the questions are weighted based on their importance to your knowledge base, and that will be reflected in your final scores. Passing score for March of 2019 is 72%, and as I said, that will be reported to you as a pass-fail, and hopefully everybody will be a pass-pass. So we'd like to reiterate that this exam is serious. It is challenging. It doesn't know you've been doing this for a lifetime, but it also does not have the flexibility to take into consideration how you particularly do business at your company. So keep that in mind. That's one of the biggest things that people get hung up on, is we don't do it that way. And this is all based on, as I said, key business principles and the best, I just lost the word, I apologize, but best practice for investment recovery. I would suggest that you make time to study regularly. Don't try to cram. You will end up stressing yourself out, and at the time of the exam, you may or may not affect you well if you're stressed. I would highly recommend reading the Investment Recovery Handbook, although not every question or every answer is a direct link to the handbook. So keep that in mind as well. Submit any areas that you would like us to talk about even further on the next webinar, and we would be happy to schedule one. We've got one tentatively scheduled right now, but based on your response, we'll see if we need to have another one or if we just have a chat with a couple of people. If you have any questions at all, please send those and make sure that we're aware of your needs, and we will do everything we can to help you. And then plan to attend the face-to-face study group in San Diego. We have found that it's been very helpful. We've been doing this the last couple of years, and the face-to-face study group provides an opportunity for people to actually sit with other test takers and kind of go over where their confusion might be, or they may not have a clear understanding of a particular item, and so this is a really helpful time, and that's been the feedback that we've received each time. March 1st, I've just been notified that March 1st is the deadline to submit the PDF form to take the test. So after today, please think about it, make a commitment. As with anything, you're going to set a goal and work toward that goal. And we're just here to help you. And I am willing to help you in any way I can. So let's see, my next. Oh, well, now we're at your time. Do you have any questions for us at this point? I'm still unable to hear. So if you wouldn't mind typing your question into the chat box, then Jane can possibly forward that question to us. And I'd be happy to try to answer anything. Okay, we have a question. All answers not in the handbook study guide, please clarify. Without going into actual specifics, I find it difficult to do that. But what we're saying is that there's a body of knowledge that you get through experience, and then there's the body of knowledge that would be reflected in the handbook. What I'm saying is that a sentence may not be taken directly from the handbook and posed to you in exactly the same format, but it will have the same content. I have another question here. How long do we have to write the exam? And the exam is at 9:30 on Sunday morning, March 17th, and you will have 2.5 hours. I have proctored the exam for the past couple of years, and I have found that probably 10% of you will require the entire 2.5 hours. There are some of you who will finish in 45 minutes or an hour, but and everything in between. This is not a test. Oh, let me read the question for you. The question is, Kelly said questions are from life experience, but read the book. What needs to be memorized? So this test is not designed with memorization in mind. This test is designed for context, for understanding the concepts behind investment recovery and best practices. So there is nothing that needs to be memorized. You will want to familiarize yourself with valuation formulas, with the different types of valuation, and basically understand the context behind the various principles in investment recovery.